Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Small Business Show. I'm your host, Swire. You can also call me the promo guy. My guest today is Mike Burek, the Chief Marketing Officer in Cyberdogz. Mike is a founder of Cyberdogz Marketing, a firm that prides itself on delivering innovative and impactful branding solutions. With a beacon for creative and visionary mindset, Mike has established himself as a leader in digital marketing by helping brands craft out the unique identity in a crowded market. His journey in marketing and design spanned over decades, where he has cultivated a deep understanding of consumer psychology, digital trends, and strategic storytelling. Mike's approach to branding is holistic and rooted in the belief that the effective marketing must evoke emotion and building lasting connection. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, Swire, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
I love your background. I love your title. Let's take it deeper into that. How did you become a designer, and how did you decide that you to become a chief marketing officer in Cyberdogz?
Yeah, when I originally went to school for graphics and stuff, my goal was to be an illustrator and a cartoonist, which kind of morphed itself into graphic design. So I spent, probably more than half of my career being a creator and a creative, so to speak, from a graphic design sense, and naturally progressing then into the digital, going from graphic design to web design and kind of everything in between, from printing to promotion and kind of all aspects of marketing.
So that's that. Thanks for sharing that. So from when you first started to until now, what have you seen the changes for us? Is it more online media versus traditional magazines is still there, but it's not as popular as let's say 15, 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as these new kind of marketing opportunities have presented themselves, everybody kind of jumps on that bandwagon and, kind of sees that as the next big thing. And we kind of go through this process of how do we drag the old into the new. So even like when I was in the printing world, the idea was, how do we take these magazines or these print assets and make them digital? How do we take this magazine and put it on a website? And to some degree, I get it. It makes sense and it's a natural progression of things. But I think one of the things as marketers and as like proprietors of our brand, um, I think it's okay to just let it be what it is sometimes, because sitting down and actually reading a physical book is a different experience than, say, reading a book on a Kindle or something like that. So as as you go forward with your own brand and as you kind of solve some of those problems for your own business, I think it's okay sometimes to leave things organic and the idea that they can be physically touched. But in marketing, it's always like, how do we evolve it? How do we stretch it? How do we move it into the next thing? And sometimes you don't have to.
Hmm. Yeah, that brings me to like a hot keywords. I think I see it a lot more in the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years, right? So, business storytelling. It seems like when I go to LinkedIn, every one of my contact are now saying that they're business storytelling expert. So, in your world, what is that? Like, what kind of story should a business be telling in the design and the from the creative process?
Yeah, there's a lot of schools of thought and a lot of different approaches on this. For me personally, I think business storytelling is kind of just being authentic and trying to be relatable. The whole idea of being authentic and using the word authenticity in your brand is a little bit cliche because everybody says it and everybody, kind of goes down that road. But I think the ones who are truly kind of honest and own their place in the process, they're just that much more relatable to people out there trying to build businesses or trying to find commonalities in business partnerships and different things. So like when I deal with my customers, I always, yeah, let's just be authentic and be real about it. But let's also let's tell the good story. Let's say what we're good at. But let's also tell them what we're not good at. Let's tell them where we're not focusing. Let's just be upfront about who we are and what our skills and weaknesses are, so that people have a good idea of, kind of what they're getting themselves into. And the byproduct of that is people really appreciate just the honesty, the transparency. And a lot of times it doesn't mean you have to be great at everything or be all things to all people, but be the best at what you can be, and just let the rest develop around you, and people appreciate that, I think.
If you tell the client, do you ever get pushback from client? Oh no, we are a restaurant. We everyone likes to eat, so we like to target everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally we're wired that way, right? Like, so we kind of always want to put on this best. It's kind of like when you start dating somebody, right? You're probably a little bit more put together and a little bit more polished in those first couple dates than you are in that relationship a month down the road, right? We all want to do that, and I think we all want to position ourselves that way, but eventually you just got to be real about it, and be who you are and kind of own that. And I think the idea of storytelling, and you want it to be fact, not fiction. We all kind of, it's just like a job interview or something like that as well. Like, you go into that job interview, that's the best version they're ever going to see, because you're putting on that presentation for that to try to get that job. And I think it's important to come in there and be honest and transparent about it, because in business, obviously, like, we're all trying to solve problems and trying to find partnerships that, you know, maybe resolve certain scenarios or kind of fill a certain gap for us. So the person on the other side, you're actually doing them a favor by being super transparent about, here's where we can help you, and here's some things that we believe we can figure out, and here's some things that's not us. Just own it.
Yeah, I think with the day and age that we have right now, like if you are trying to pretend you're something that we're not, like the dating example, right? If I go on to your website or social media or look at maybe some review sites, then I can find out, if you are who you said you were pretty quickly. And I really like that example. Like I always believe, even for myself, there are always going to be a fit, right? My ideal client. Sometimes there might not be a fit, and if I try to force those ones who are not fit for me, then I become really stressful, and then I get the customer from hell. So do
Yep.
you really want that for your business?
Yeah, and we've even had it where, having that honest conversation with a potential client, they might even come back and say, okay, understood, but I still want to work with you because I think you're our kind of people. Let's figure out where we can kind of make this work. And even that is a win, because you just kind of calibrated expectations without knowing it. So even though you weren't quite what they were looking for, you did all of a sudden fit into a box where they just want to work with you, because they appreciate that transparency. So there can even be a win that comes out of that. It doesn't necessarily mean you lose the client.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that example. You led me to the right way. So let's talk about the power of visual branding. In your word, what is visual branding and why do we need that? Let's say when we are maybe starting a business or maybe try to grow and rebrand a business.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple things. One is that I think it's important to not only put your brand out there and give yourself that established entity of, hey, we exist, here's our brand, here's what we're all about. And it, over time, you're subliminally getting these people kind of aware and kind of accustomed to this brand and what it means, stands for, what it looks like, sounds like, feels like. So there's this whole kind of universe you're kind of building around this brand, so that people who either haven't worked with you yet or are currently working with you get kind of that full experience, and they can kind of associate it then to that logo or that brand that you've created for yourself, which is a huge asset. And it plays to the longevity of that experience, and people that want to feel that way when they're in a partnership or a client relationship like that. But also from an internal aspect, if you're an entrepreneur or you're a business owner and you're looking to either build your brand from scratch, or maybe it's to rebrand to get the business and the brand back on track, if you love your brand and you're feeling, kind of energized by it, and you're feeling confidence around it, you are actually going to present and sell and go out in the world a bit differently than you would if you had a brand that you weren't really in love with. And I always say to my clients, why would anybody love your brand if you don't? We should actually love our brand as much as as much as, if not more than anybody, so that you're going out there with some confidence and you're going out there knowing that, hey, we're not perfect, but we got some pretty cool things going on, and it's all encompassed in this whole brand experience and this vibe that I'm putting out there. So like for me, it's a psychological thing, but it's also like a very physical thing to be proud of it, to put it on your hat, or maybe it's a vehicle wrap or on a side of a building or something like that. So to me, it's very important that you feel confidence around it.
Yeah, and that ties into the business storytelling that we, talk about in the beginning, right? So your audience, customer, client, whatever that they are, they have to like your story before they would put on maybe a hat like Mike just suggested, or maybe do a social post with your banners on it. So they all tie in together. Think about a good example will be like university colleges that you have attended. So you might be in your 50s or 60s right now. I still see people wearing and supporting the alumni school, like, right? They're always wearing apparel for where they graduated. Talk about like a football team, right? Even people who are from out of state, when they travel, right, they wear their favorite football team's jersey, hats, or branded merchandise that goes around town. So think about that with the story, and then with the visual branding, people can actually purchase from you and be a fan of your business. And then it's what I would always say, become a mini ambassador for your brand, with them actually being a paying customer.
Yeah, it just really adds to the overall kind of experience. There was a time where it was all about just having the best product or the best price, or and these kinds of things. And not that those things don't matter, but if you can marry those kind of expectations with a story that goes with it, maybe it's a family legacy kind of a thing, maybe it's a business that you started with, your brother or something, if you can add that element of relatability and kind of, um, there's almost a softer side to, hey, here's the story as to why we are the way we are, and here's what we hope it means to other people. It's a totally different level of connection that people can latch onto and find reasons to, now I love this brand even more.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So when we talk about visual branding design, so we have to talk about design, right? Design,
Yep.
design, design. For small business professional out there, within their marketing or business plan, how much effort or resources or money should they allocate it in the design process when they try to figure out and try to grow their business?
What, the number's going to be tough, but what I would say is that from the onset, put something aside so that you can, in a digestible way, add layers to your brand over time. So if you're starting from complete zero, you're starting your business, what are those milk, eggs, and bread type items that I want to have out there day one? So it might be a business card. I might want to brand myself up, and I might want to, put some flyers or some different things together that I can distribute as I'm out there trying to sell my business. But it's also, the idea is like, think about where you're going to be and where you're going to be doing these things. So me, for example, it was a very organic process for me of hitting networking groups and coffee shops and all these different things. So I thought, okay, well, the best way for me to get my brand out there is I need to be a walking billboard. So from the time I started my business, I was wearing Cyberdogz swag, and I had a Cyberdogz backpack with my logo on the back, because I knew as I walked through these coffee shops and as I found my way into different meetings, that was my best opportunity to make sure my brand was front and center at all times. So in 2015, when I started Cyberdogz, that was like my first investment, was I need to swag myself up, because I am the walking billboard.
Hmm.
And what was interesting about it is a couple things. One is I noticed there were a few people wearing branded swag that maybe they got from their employer or their local bank or
Hmm.
insurance agent or whatever. But for the most part, like I was the only one that was repping his brand that hard. And the other thing is that everybody noticed.
Hmm.
Like I got numerous comments almost daily on people saying, "Hey, can I get one of those hats?" Or, "Oh my god, that's cool." Or, "Hey, I noticed you're always repping your brand." Like it's not that it went unnoticed. And at first maybe I thought it was going to be more of a subliminal thing, but it went highly noticed by the people around me in the different crowds and just basically the audiences that I was putting in front of, to the point where even sometimes I got stopped randomly for people just to ask, "What is that logo? I've seen that around." And to me, that was enough justification to just keep doing it. The
Hmm.
point of all this is that when you start your business, think about where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, and find ways to take that little bit of budget you set aside and make an impact with it. And then as you go forward, kind of make that part of your process every year to make sure you're adding layers to it and getting your brand out there, because a lot of times people want to back burner that expense, or they want to back burner this idea of, well, I don't need swag, or I don't need this, or I don't need that. And the cost of doing that is you're making it that much harder for people to realize and gain awareness around your brand. So prioritize yourself and make sure you put that as part of your initial budget.
Yeah, I really like that, Mike, and I'm so glad that you are a big fan of promo item. And I always talk about the ROI, and in promotional product, the ROI means the return on impression. Think about if you see Mike at the coffee shop, right? He's wearing the Cyberdogz hat, T-shirts, and backpack. Then you know that, oh, okay, he represents that company. So then you actually becomes the billboard, and people ask you, "What do you do? Like, what does that logo mean?" Right? People stop you for that. What if you could have a good business story that all of your employees or your workers or even your client will know, right? Which this is our mission, we stand for, and then you send them in apparel or some items that they take along with them on the daily life. And when people ask them that question, now it's not just one person now. Maybe you have 10 people, or if you're good, you train it up to maybe 100, 1,000 people. They all say the same things about your company. How do you think that will impact your brand awareness? And how do you think, like, if one people tell me, I might not believe it, but if 10, 100 people tell me the same thing, and then I'm going to believe in it and look into it myself.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and I think it creates a subliminal expectation as well. And just point in case is that I've always believed in, kind of repping my own brand and getting stuff out there, but I've always believed also in that I want to put quality stuff out there. Like I personally want quality for myself, therefore I want quality for, kind of the swag and the different things that I put together for my team members and or clients. So, as I've been kind of going down this road for a while and finding the really nice stuff in the quality brands that I want to associate my brand with, I'm also then setting an expectation of quality subliminally, so that when people get this stuff, it always starts as like, "Oh, a sweatshirt, thanks." And that just tells me that they've been given a lot of sweatshirts over the years.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden they look at it and they're touching it. They're like, "Man, this thing's nice." And then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, we just leveled up." And then lo and behold, they'll either ask for another one or, "Hey, I wore out that sweatshirt you gave me. Can I have a new one, or do you have any more?" And to the ROI thing is like, for me, subliminally, I'm banking a brand and quality association with the products that we're putting out there, so that people are like, yeah, Cyberdogz is really quality stuff, because that's what they give away. That's what they're putting me in. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm putting it out there that the value of what I'm giving away is my own brand and my own reputation. Nothing against it. I don't, you know, to each their own. But like when I see businesses giving away Starbucks gift cards and things like that as these gifts, I'm thinking, well, that's nice. It's even nicer for Starbucks, because now you're just giving Starbucks these advertisements. And it's like, find a way, if you can, find a way to do a co-branded coffee certificate or a hat or a whatever. Because if you're going to be giving away gifts, give away the gift with your brand on it, to put your own brand first. Because to be honest, I think everybody's probably been through this. You're going to get that Starbucks gift card. You're going to stick it in your wallet or in your vehicle or whatever. You're going to forget where you even got it. And not that it isn't a still nice a gift or whatnot, but the whole idea of giving that gift, that branded experience, is so that they remember you when it comes time to make that next purchasing decision, or when they need a new logo or some branding or marketing or whatever it is. So you kind of did yourself a disservice by not giving them something that they'll remember you by. So the whole ROI and the quality association and all those different things can be a very powerful thing if done right.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Like, I think you are like the ambassador for promo item. Like, I have to quote you on it whenever
Yeah.
I talk to client. And I think you touch on an important piece, right? You touch on the top of mind. By giving your client quality product like the sweatshirt that you're talking about, so they might not heard from you for a while, but each time they wear the sweatshirt, especially if other people comment on, wow, that's a nice sweatshirt, where did you get it? Then they put on the hat again and become the ambassador and fans of Cyberdogz again. Or when they, you give them a nice tumbler and they go to Starbucks, right? They don't use the Starbucks one that has your brand on it. Then other people ask them about it. So then you're actually using the cost to purchase that promotion item to turn your client into telling them the story that you want them to tell. Think about it that way. I think people don't like to do co-branding is they don't want to think that much. Like, it's easy to give you a Starbucks gift card, go there, have your coffee, thank you. But if you actually create something that's relevant to your client, you can actually train them to say things that you want them to say to other of their colleagues, friends who could be your potential client. So that's usually my pitch to my client. That's why you have to spend a little bit more time with it. It's easy to just buy pen and put your logo and do like 1,000 on it. But if you're doing it relevant, like the examples that you're giving, Mike, it could be a sweater that is in the closet for the next 5-10 years.
Well, and yeah, exactly. And for me, like, I can't do the exact math on it, but I'm in Minnesota and we're in lake country, and 9 out of 10 people you talk to are going to be sitting around a campfire sometime in the next 90 days. I'm all about putting sweatshirts on those people, so when they're sitting at that campfire, they're wearing it. And even like hats, like I wear a lot of hats, but I give a lot of hats away to different people too. But I'm always listening to see what kind of people they are, if they're hat people versus sweatshirt people versus beer mug people. Like, I'm trying to figure out who they are, because I know if I can put a hat on that guy's head and he goes out there and wears it 100 times, the cost of that hat was nothing. And it was really a cheap way to put my brand out there and to put it in a lot of different places where I can't be everywhere at all time, but my brand can. So if I give them those pieces and have those things kind of represented, it's a good opportunity for me to get my brand out there and eventually open up conversation around, hey, where'd you get that sweatshirt? Or that's a sweet logo. I like that. And it sounds like wishful thinking, but it actually happens all the time. I get clients and people that ask me for, like, hey, can I get a hat for my neighbor? He really liked mine. Sure. Because now I got one more guy wearing my hat. Like, and does that guy buy my service? I don't know, not necessarily, but the guy who sees his hat at the next softball game he's at might buy my service. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that I know some people will pay up to $500 for Google keywords, right? But then they won't. Let's say you buy like the nicest hat, like $50, right? Very fancy custom hat already, like $50 versus $500 for a click. They might visit your website and gone. But if you can do that as a campaign and give it to the right people, because I think you touched on the best point. You observe the person, right? Is this person outdoor all the time by the campfire, or this person only stays home, but then
Yep.
they have like a sewing tea party, or they do pottery. So you might have a different gift for the person. So if you give the right item to the right person, then now they will use it and they spread the word. Speaking of that, Mike, I know that a lot of company now, even if you're a startup or if you are, bigger company, what I normally will interact with them is they have success now, and now they want to put in like in-person event, or they might exhibit at trade shows, or they might like sponsor a local nonprofit, like a gala, for example. But they have designed the logo all based on digital. All the formats are in digital. When
Yep.
they try to create something that's tangible, it could be a hat or it could be a banner. They actually don't have the right logo for it. And like the worst case scenario is, even for a bigger company, is they might have local representative who just grab the logo from the email signature, and then they try to change the logo to it. So as a seasoned designer, what would you say to that, and what should be the best way companies should approach this to for digital, and then now the tangible side of printing for the same logo?
Yeah, a couple things. One, sometimes you'll see a very nice logo and like for whatever reason you're getting it to drop it into a publication or to make a sign or something. And somebody will say, yeah, that's all we have was this ping file or this JPEG file. And you can look at the logo and say, uh, there's no way the guy who designed that logo only like he definitely designed it in Illustrator or there's some vector format out there because the logo is just too nice. You can just tell that the guy who did it or gal or whatever, whoever did it was there is a digital vector version out there somewhere.
Mhm.
Just we got to find it. So we try to, I mean, it's not 100% because it's always as good as the person you're dealing with, but we always try to get the situation where we educate the people as to what the differences are between JPEGs, pings, EPSs, even the difference between like an AI file versus a PDF or whatever. Because anytime you can come back to that root file, that source file, which is typically like an Illustrator file or an EPS, you're going to position yourself for the absolute best quality possible.
Mhm.
So like for me personally, that's the only real file I share with anybody, even if they request a JPEG, because I want to make sure that whatever publication, sign, poster, whatever scenario you're about to use my logo on, I want to make sure it's crisp and perfect and scalable to whatever size. Because here's the other thing. After that initiative or that first initial run is done, there's a good chance that that logo is going to find its way in somebody else's hands and share it over here. And oh, now we're going to do this. So, hey, let me send you the logo. So, if you're going to position somebody to recklessly distribute your logo, make sure you give them the high quality one, because that way, at least if it does end up somewhere, it's of quality and not a low res JPEG or something like that.
Would you recommend like a branding guide, or does it make sense to give them like a bunch of files, for example, for print, maybe for web, or maybe for like if they want to really do it right, maybe pre-formatted for like Instagram, TikTok, and other things that they do, so they can relate back to the folder for the right file, so and they don't try to convert it online, because it's easy to do it online with like Canva and other things, and you know
Yeah.
and one more example is, that's why when you like next time go to like a nonprofit gala or things that has a lot of people's logo on it, you could tell someone who sent the right logo, and you can tell someone didn't send the right logo.
Yep.
Or maybe a newspaper, you see a bunch of logo, then why are some of those really jagged and low res?
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty obvious thing. For one, we try to do a brand style guide that spells this out to people, but then you have to make sure the people are willing to read it. The other thing we do is we try to set up like a folder structure within like Dropbox or something like that. That literally the name of the folder is for print, for web, for social media, whatever it is, so that we can kind of hopefully steer them towards the solution. And then the last thing we do is when we ever do logo and brand build outs for people, when we send out that logo package or suite of options, we try to spell out kind of the reason and this is how to use this version and whatever. to make sure that they've just been handed all the information. Now, are they going to use it? I don't know. But we try to give them all the information up front so that they know. So at least they have all versions and all formats available at their discretion to make sure that they at least have the options in front of them. Because I think most people are moving too fast to really think about it. When somebody says, "Hey, send me your logo for X,
Mm,
Y, and Z," they're
yeah.
going to grab the first one that's available without really thinking about how it's going to get used. But I think the other thing is on the other side of that, at least I can speak for myself. When we're given a low res logo, because then we kind of know the person on the other side maybe didn't know the difference, we won't necessarily use it without asking for a higher quality version. And I think whoever's running that print publication or doing those signs, or they should also stop and ask to make sure that they're giving that client the best chance for a good representation as well.
Yeah, I know I will, but there are sometimes under a deadline,
Yeah.
especially just grab whatever I have on my email signature and
Right. And sometimes they don't even know where to get the best file. Like
yeah.
they were, they're just using what they have. Like I said in that earlier example, like sometimes they say, "Nope, this is all we have." And I'm like, I know it's not, but I don't know where to get the good one either because I don't know all the people involved or when this was done, or
Hmm.
even if they even have a relationship with the original artist, no idea.
Yeah.
But as company owners and as business owners, like covet covet those files and try to maintain control over them because you'll always need them eventually.
Yeah. So I think the most important question, I'm saving it for last, and I really want you to tell me more about this. You mentioned that color can influence consumer emotions and decisions. Is it based on the industry that they're in, or do you know that there are some sort of color pattern that make people feel a certain way better?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the color theories that go into logos and brands and whatnot, it comes from a couple different places. One is that it's derived from the kind of the emotions and the subliminal cues that these colors kind of make us feel or make us kind of associate certain things with. But there's also a theory or a logic behind it from the color wheel and the color theory behind it, and using triadic colors that visually work best together and or don't work together at all. So taking all those things into account when you're building a brand and a logo, you're factoring those things in, but then also looking at maybe the brand voice or tone or the culture of the company as to what brand or what color I should say represents that company, but also looking at certain industries and what their common color is. So like you'll see a lot of greens and browns in the agricultural industry. You'll see a lot of red, yellow, and blue in the food industry because those colors are meant to invoke hunger. And so if you really look at these different patterns, like it's like you don't notice it because if you're not paying attention to it, but if you
Hmm.
look at like even the food industry, look at McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, um, Pizza Hut, like just look at like your fast food chains and look at the commonalities in their color palettes and how they use them. It's overwhelmingly going to be red, yellow, and sometimes blue in all of them.
Yeah, it's true. And now I'm thinking about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
they all have like bright colors.
which by the way, when you look at like the overall color palette and the triadic colors, they all work together very nicely. But if you look at like just like I said, like the food industry, for example, it is just overwhelmingly they're all pulling from the same color palette. And there's a reason for that. There's a science behind that.
Hmm. Thank you. So, Mike, for company out there, how often should they think about rebranding, or would you suggest whenever that they might grow or maybe change the mission? Like, what would be the general rule of thumb for considering the rebranding process?
I, th- I think I think rebranding comes into play when you're not happy with your brand, or if you're pivoting away from, maybe we started out doing X, Y, and Z, and now all of a sudden we're doing something totally different. That might warrant a rebrand. rebranding to me is almost like a starting over process. And I would ask the question of, okay, why are you starting over? What is so vastly different about what you're doing today versus yesterday that makes you want to completely start over? And sometimes the answer is, I just never really liked our logo. Okay, so basically we're rebranding because you got off on the wrong foot, and
Mhm.
now that you better understand and better know who you are, we want to capture that and create a brand around that. So rebranding for me is a lot more of a it's a huge shift. It's a lot more of a redo. And I'm not saying you can't do it. I just think there's different considerations that need to be made when rebranding. What I like to talk about is brand evolution. So if you're somebody that started your business 5, 10 years ago and you've slowly changed over time, and maybe you have more budget to spend on branding, and you kind of feel like, hey, we're still on the right track, but we're trying to level up. To me, that's a brand evolution, and that's about, okay, then how do we take your brand up a notch, or how do we go next level with maybe the subsequent items around your brand, to kind of play off of what was once there. So to me, it's almost two different things. One is kind of a from scratch implementation, which is the rebrand, and then a brand evolution is now how do we stretch it out and expand the brand into being more. And with that could be everything from a brand evolution visually, or it could be something where we're going to create icon sets, and we're going to create maybe secondary logos that could be used on apparel, stuff we just want to have fun with, and kind of play off of that over time. And again, if you look at like different industries, like take let's go to the food service industry again. There are certain brand elements that you can see evolve over time, like with a like a soft drink like Pepsi, or even like a Burger King. Like, if you look at their brands over the years, they've made slight differences and changes that you can see kind of an evolution happen. But then if you look at brands like maybe Coca-Cola or say McDonald's with the golden arches, they don't they're not gonna, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're gonna leave some of those things alone, and then they're gonna bring in brand elements around it. Like Coke is a great example where during Christmas they have the polar bear kind
Yeah.
of branding vibe versus the Santa Claus versus the so they've created almost like different seasonal universes around their brand, but they haven't really changed the brand. Does that make sense? So
Mhm.
either or, like, I think it's about, whatever industry you're in or wherever you're at, kind of in your brand evolution or where your brand is for your business. It's kind of thinking about, the brand equity of what I have, and do I want to change that? What does that mean for my overall presentation? So,
Yeah, thank you so much for the answer. So for listener who really want more about, how individually, it could help their business, what would be the best way to reach out to you?
yeah, you can check us out on our website at cyberdogsmarketing.com. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I kind of like geeking out on the whole branding topic. So if you want to chat it up or ask me any questions, you can certainly email me at mike@cyberdogsmarketing.com.
Mike, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. I really, enjoyed talking to you, and we're so like-minded, for what we believe in, branding and, helping a company to get the name out there.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and great chatting with you.
Take care.